Welcome to Destination Marriage, a podcast about successfully navigating the winding roads of marriage. Whether you're wanting to get married, newlyweds, or have been married for years, we want to share with you how we have navigated those winding roads over the past 20 years in our marriage.
Join us on this journey as we talk about real-life experiences in marriage and what we have learned along the way. We discuss love, travel, kids, friendships, and much more, all from the perspective of our lives together.
Happiness, love, grace, passion are things we all strive for in marriage, and we invite you to take this journey with us.
Welcome to Destination Marriage. Welcome to episode 52 of Destination Marriage. I'm Tommy.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are thrilled to have you join us on this journey today.
Yes, we are. How are you doing today, babe?
I am doing fantastic. It's a wonderful 40 degrees outside. It looks like winter is upon us. Winter is coming. Winter has came.
Well, what better time than, I guess, to stay in and watch a good documentary, right?
I guess, yeah.
So we recently watched the documentary called LuLaRich, which is a popular and well-known MLM on comfortable clothing or magical Lularoe. But the documentary is called LuLaRich. But it's about the MLM Lularoe, which is comfortable clothing or magical-like leggings that fit every and all shapes. So who doesn't like a comfortable piece of clothing? I mean, obviously women just flock to it in droves. And better yet, this was a product that if you, quote unquote, put your whole heart into it and soul into it, that would determine the success of your business and your financial freedom if you chose to become an independent retailer. Mm-hmm. And mind you, this MLM was targeting women who were typically stay-at-home moms that were unfortunately struggling at that time with their financial choices in order to make ends meet.
Oh, yeah, so, like about empowering that whole, part of the society where they, they even talk about it, like women that have, chosen to stay home. It's, they want to raise their family, but they also either have that passion or that drive or that entrepreneurial spirit. And this was, a potentially fantastic kind of opportunity to, meet that, fulfill that need, that drive, like you said, the entrepreneurial spirit, and be able to stay at home and purposely, build your family and care for your family, right?
It sounds like in a lot of this, the actual testimonies and a lot of these situations, most of these women, unfortunately, were not in a position where they could comfortably be a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
Their spouse, even though their spouse was working, the income just wasn't enough. So they had to, kind of think around out of the box, I guess. What else can I do? And here was an opportunity. And the way it presented itself was, hey, you're going to be able to be a great mom, take care of your home, and we're going to give you financial freedom. Mm-hmm. So we're going to discuss what we learned from the documentary.
Indeed.
Kind of like just our behind the scenes research, our opinions, of course. That's, of course, why you listen, right? And the hidden challenges or the repercussions behind, unfortunately, making the choice to invest the time and the money in this MLM, just kind of based on what we saw through the documentary. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, baby, why don't you start off and just kind of give a little history of the company?
Yeah.
Like who the founders are and kind of how it grew and some of the key points that they, spend. It's a 4-part documentary, so I think each episode's like 50 minutes maybe. So it's pretty lengthy.
Yeah.
It's not just an hour and a half straight through. It's it's pretty comprehensive, right? For what they've for analyzing all sides and kind of walking through the history of the company and then like leading it where it's. Yeah. Where we stand as of today in 2021, right? So
just a little backstory.
Yep.
So Lularoe was actually created by a mom of 7. She was actually a single mom, and her name is Deanne. Her last name was Startup, actually, before she got married. So I think that's kind of interesting. But she was a single mom of 7 from a previous marriage. She was tight on funds. She was trying to figure out a way to
kudos to her, right?
Yeah.
That's not easy for anybody.
Actually, there's a lot of great characteristics to Deanne. Unfortunately, how things unfolded later on is a different story. But she has grit, okay? I got to give her that. Mm-hmm. So she meets a gentleman by the name of Mark Stidham on a plane. They actually sat next to each other, They ended up hitting it off. They get married. They end up having, I believe, 7 more children. So they have 14.
He brought some kids into the to the marriage, I think, and then they adopted over the years.
So they adopted children. They had children of their own.
It's a spider web.
Yeah. So, but they have a very large family. They did adopt several children. So they have a heart for family. And
right. Yeah. And they seem to have a passion.
She loved being a mom.
That,
yeah. She loved being a mom. And he actually mentions that he was really attracted to her because he was attracted to her energy. She was upbeat. Her drive. She's very energetic. I mean, it's I like people who have, an upbeat attitude.
Feed off of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a magnet. So, just to kind of give you an idea of what she's like.
Right.
But anyway, so she now has a house full of 14 kids. One of her older daughters at the time wanted a maxi skirt and came to her mom. And her mom, she even says, Dan said, I sewed quite a bit. So I said, sure, I'll make you a maxi skirt. She goes to the store, gets a pattern or creates a pattern, finds some colorful fabrics and starts making maxi skirts for her teenage daughter.
As well as like selling some dresses for somebody she saw at like not a flea market, some sort of selling.
That's right.
Where she was looking for name brand dresses, couldn't afford them. So she saw these beautiful little dresses for girls and started selling them out of her trunk along with the maxi skirts she was making. And it just started like taking off.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to that because that's actually a really good point. I forgot that. So she actually went to a flea market when the kids were younger to find pretty like holiday dresses. Went to Macy's, couldn't afford the dresses. They were like $50 a pop. So she goes to a flea market, finds these beautiful dresses for $10 each. She bought the kids dresses. She bought herself a dress. And she thought, you know what? I bet I know a ton of moms that would want to come here and buy these dresses. So she talked to the owner. What if I created a party and I had all of your dresses set up in my driveway? Would you give me a profit from this sale? She sold every dress. And then she continued to have parties. So that's a creative mindset. Not only that, she's willing to take risks.
She was busting her ass to work. She was working hard,
She was. And she's being a pioneer woman. She's trying to think of how can I make sure that my little girls have those dresses, but I'm not obviously putting us in the poorhouse.
Right.
And I can also make money. I mean, you have to hand it to her.
So
she's smart.
One thing that wasn't clear in that moment, and I'm curious about this, and I'm not that I matter, but like I'm not accusing, but
you matter.
They didn't say, they didn't say that they were not designer dresses or that they were made by that gentleman in the documentary. Like, you know how a lot of times at flea markets, it's stuff that quote fell off the back of the truck.
Oh, like fake designer dresses.
Fake designer or just flat out stolen. Because
she did say in the documentary that the dresses looked identical to the ones at the department store.
And then I may have missed the nuance there, but it could have been something they glossed over. I don't know.
That was the wording. She didn't say it was the same.
I mean, are these like, Chinese made, designer, coming over from, mimicking. I mean, we know that like that's a huge issue, right?
Yeah, like fake handbags or stuff like that. Anyways, I don't know. Either way, she created an opportunity for herself from scratch. She thought creatively. She was willing to ask, and a lot of people are just too scared because they're scared to hear no.
Right.
That in itself, the very fact, and I think that's a long time ago. If we're thinking when this actually started, before she started making the maxi skirt, she started thinking of how can I create a solution?
Right.
So I have to hand it to her.
And she was tapping into, and I loved, I think it was one of the journalists or maybe it was an economist in the documentary who was in general just talking about the economic power and like entrepreneurial power behind that huge block in the United States of the stay-at-home mom, that's a huge power, like economic power driver in the United States. And this woman was like tapping into it, like absolutely tapping into it. So I know you laugh at me when I say this, but she caught lightning in a bottle, right? Like she really did. By the way, Jackie flat out makes fun of me every time I say it. And then guess what?
Because you have so many sayings that I've never heard of. So,
but now you say it. Now it's like when
the scenario pops up, you're like,
daggone it, now I've got to say Tommy's.
I'm looking for an opportunity.
It's like when I set myself up on, we were talking about those like phrases to not use, and now I can't not say, I've been triggered. I'm triggered.
We do need some new sayings, though. I feel like I've been hearing some. you need to refresh your little repertoire, whatever.
She caught lightning in a bottle.
She did. She caught lightning in a bottle. So from there, that's when the maxi skirt.
And then she electrocuted a whole lot of people. Not in a good way.
She so she starts creating the maxi skirts for her daughter.
Was that a dad joke?
It might be.
That was a dad joke. Sorry, guys.
Dad jokes. Anyway, so she creates these maxi skirts. Other girls start asking about it. Her daughter's friends at school, I want a maxi skirt. Can your mom make me one? So her mom started making them for other people and selling them. And then a young lady who also really liked the maxi skirts came to her house, bought a few. And I take that back. Nope, didn't come to her house. She met her somewhere. She had put bins.
Yeah, she flew to like Seattle or something.
She had put bins and bins of her maxi skirts in large, just the Rubbermaid containers, and started selling them out of her car. And one girl came in and bought maybe, let's say 30. And she said, I have tons of friends who would really love these. So she made a deal with her, and that was her first retailer. Before it was Lularoe, that's how it originated. That very first retailer she brought on to resell, become a reseller of her maxi skirts. And then she had a conversation with her husband, because I guess there were a few other women, maybe 2 or 3 others.
Like how do
we turn this?
Scale
we have
this,
something
basically.
here. Yeah. How do we scale it? How do we make this an opportunity for other moms to sell a really great product, become independent, make money for their families, and be able to provide as well, and also empower them.
So do you think
he puts together this model? Go ahead. Sorry.
Right, but do you think like isn't it clear as day? This wasn't that long ago, right? Like multi-level marketing, the good, the bad, the ugly has been known for a long time, right? It's out there. Did he really think he was coming up with like his own idea here? Yeah, it was a different product and maybe some different verbiage, but they were setting up an MLM. Like it was pretty straightforward, right? Or they just...
I don't think he said it's not an MLM. He specifically said it's not a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, well, of course they're going to...
But I don't think he claimed we're not an MLM. But did he go into it thinking, I'm creating an MLM?
Or thinking I'm creating something completely unique here?
He may have. I don't know. He may have thought...
Hubris, yeah. Maybe.
And here's the thing. It's not like we're dealing with 2 individuals that have previously run successful multi-million-dollar companies.
But he did state that his parents were like some of the original Amway distributors.
Oh, you're right.
So I think he knew exactly what he was doing when he started.
Which, if you guys aren't familiar with Amway, it's like, one of those old school.
It's the first MLM that targeted created the idea around it. Didn't create the pyramid scheme, but really started focusing on making money off of your downline.
Yeah.
They were the ones that really, it wasn't just direct selling and making money off of selling product like every business. It was that whole upline, right, downline kind of component. Yeah.
There's a million of them out there. So whether it's Amway or Herbalife or I don't even know. There's a million out there. I don't know if he thought he was thinking of or creating something completely... I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
He's a smart guy.
Brand new. Yeah, I mean, he seems like he's a sharp guy.
So you combine like his sort of structure and organizational experience and drive with her kind of energy and her entrepreneurial spirit and the actual like product that she is creating, right?
Right.
It's a powerhouse.
Yeah. She was the face of the company, and he was really a lot of the behind the scenes kind of creating that structure. Because even in, some of the questions that she's asked, she's claims to be unaware. So I don't know if that's just because she wasn't in charge of those things.
When they show the depositions later on. Yeah.
But she's really the face.
That's coaching.
And
that's coaching from lawyers. And lawyers' jobs are to protect their clients. So that's what's hard. Whenever you see like snippets of depositions, like it's biased. Whoever's doing the editing of those depositions, like those depositions are hours long, and they show 10 seconds here, 5 seconds there that make them look terrible.
Yeah.
But when they make them look bad, it makes them look really bad, you know? And then when you cut to another scene of a woman whose family was destroyed because of this. And
it's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a good look.
All right. So then it just kind of exploded.
Yeah. So,
right?
Once he
The
creates
business.
the structure, he
And
creates...
it scaled, it grew, not just exploded, like
Right.
destroyed.
They came up with the name Lularoe, which is after their first 3 granddaughters. So that's how they came up with the name. And then, honestly, yeah, you're right. It actually grew quicker than I think they even knew how to manage it all together. And then they quickly tried to create roles where they felt like
they brought other family into these
They
roles.
brought all of these family members, and most of them were their children, their adult children at this point, to come in as directors of marketing.
Key roles, not just around the office, like senior level.
Yeah, right. Like director
division,
level, VP level positions where they are overseeing, how money is being handled, how we're promoting business, how we are, treating our retailers, all of those things that, obviously if you don't have that background, you don't have that training. I mean, there can be just one miss or one domino falls and then the rest fall afterwards, So they bring in all their family members. But here's something that's really important for people to know. If you're not familiar with Lularoe, it is one of and it may be the most expensive MLM to actually take part in.
To buy
the investment is incredibly high. Well, I mean, it
definitely was. It was what?
$5,000
at first. Is it still that now, or
it's still
$5,000?
$5,000? And there was actually another package which I was looking up to just to confirm. That was the lowest amount. You could actually go up to $9,000 as a startup if you wanted to do that as well. And I think
just product. It's just clothes.
It's just clothes. It's just product. From there, you have to obviously create how you're going to, investing time, but also a space. A lot of these moms, if they didn't have a space, and you'll notice in the documentary, some of them, I think one mentioned that she got rid of her nursery, like took over her baby's room, moved everything out so she had a space to sell all these items.
Right.
So they're, investing money that they probably don't already have. I think there was someone on there that actually sold breast milk.
Yeah, they made that quite a point, right? To talk about how
They said they were encouraged to do that.
Encouraged to, right.
But the owners actually said they never said that.
Yeah. Well, of course they're going to say that. And
so
I got to say, like, the documentary as a whole was pretty balanced, right? And so we remember when we were talking, when we were like about halfway through it, I said, man, are they, because the owners they knew they were in this documentary. They were sitting down in their office to tell their story.
Yeah.
So we were wondering, is this going to be a huge, like, gotcha at the end?
Yeah.
Like a lot of documentaries, they, like the people get interviewed and they're like, I didn't know I was going to be set up for this, and overall, like, it's a pretty balanced from multiple perspectives, type of documentary. I was really impressed from that perspective. But so like, that is one example. It's like you have some women who, who are speaking negatively and whose lives, and financial, livelihood were destroyed because of this investment, this company. How much were they encouraged, consider the source always, right? Like, I
mean, there are a lot of outside of the documentary. There are multiple Facebook groups.
True.
And other online support groups for retailers, like the women that are in the documentary that unfortunately
they're saying the same thing. Yeah.
Thousands of dollars.
Which I don't doubt at all. But like the breast milk story, like, that's very, very specific. Right. So
you're saying that's not true.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just kind of raising the whole specter of, like, was that really, if one person, it's a he said, she said at this point, or she said at this point, right?
Right. So, but let's be real. Okay, so if someone doesn't have the $5,000, where are they getting it from, right? A credit card, or they're taking a mortgage out on their home, or
given all the other things that she said, that they have her on video saying, like, chastising people. Yeah. It really wouldn't surprise me if she said that too.
It wouldn't surprise me. But let's say if it wasn't even the breast milk, any one of the other suggestions could be, I mean, they're terrible because they really could put someone at financial risk.
Display. It's greed on display.
Yeah, because who gets the initial $5,000-$10,000?
Right. It's all going to them.
Right. So whether or not you ever see a penny of that back, guess what? It's not keeping them up at night. So, that's what's concerning to me. If you know that most of them moms, stay-at-home moms, are not in a financial position to invest that kind of money, are you really caring? Do you really care? Because they, obviously they express how much they care and they love their retailers. To me, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. It makes me feel like, they care more about the initial investment so they can run with it and continue to build their conglomerate.
And that's what they were doing, which, I have a lot of thoughts. Mm-hmm. They also, one thing that they also tapped into, and this was more of I think the right time at the right place, is they utilize Facebook better than any other company I've ever heard of. Facebook Live, just do these online, basically these online shows, and they were selling online. Mm-hmm. But it also hurt them when all these Facebook groups started popping up, and then what those grew exponentially of all these retailers that have lost everything, who felt stranded, alone, taken advantage of, with no outlet, no resource.
Right.
And boom, all of a sudden they started finding each other. Mm-hmm. And now that same power that was driving sales is also driving these huge groups of women, that are teaming up, and then,
that are showing you what's really behind the curtain.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's the other thing. And, if you're in sales, and you probably know that, in most sales positions, if you work for a company, you have a specific territory, right? Or a different market you work on, or focus on. With Lularoe, it's literally the wild, wild west. I mean, they just kept on bringing retailers on retailers. I could literally probably throw a coin outside my window and hit 5 people that have sold the exact same product. But guess what? You're going to run out of people that you can reach out to and sell to. Who needs that many pair of leggings or maxi skirts? Nobody. Right. So as that pool of people, women, right, that are buying these Lularoe products dwindles down, then you're stuck with even more product. And some of these prints were very specific to a season or a holiday. Yeah. So if you didn't sell your Halloween leggings and now you're moving into Christmas, you're buying more products so you can sell Christmas.
Which they encouraged nonstop, Halloween. Which is very, very deceptive. And it's just not, and they have that on video, talking about, no, what you need to do is reinvest.
Constantly reinvest.
Which, all businesses reinvest, right? Like, that's the name of, scaling any type of business is, you reinvest. But the way, with knowing simple math, right? With them knowing what's really happening financially at the retailer level, retailer is an individual business owner, right? Mm-hmm. That is deceptive. That is just pure greed. And it's immoral in my mind. They know by, pushing that agenda of reinvesting, that's the only way, that they were setting those people up for failure. Yeah. And just taking that money in.
Well, I think her husband actually had mentioned, when someone had raised the question about, the fact that the territories or the areas were flooded with retailers, and then they were running out of people to sell to. He said, well, some people took that box of clothing and turned it into $1 million. He said $1 million. Okay. And some people took that box and put it in the closet because it scared them. So did they turn it into $1 million for Lularoe, or did they turn it into $1 million for themselves, for their own family?
And this is another thing that throughout the documentary, and then throughout just our own kind of research, what's so, I think, very deceptive intentionally and or really hard to try to research, is they only talk about how much money either they sold, how much money a retailer would sell if they did certain numbers of parties and things. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how much you sold if the expenses were more than what you sold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if your overhead is going to exceed what your actual income is, you're still going to be in the red.
Yeah, you're not making money. Yeah. It's not as if it's like a company that you started that has investment from, outside investors where you're going to run a loss for a few years until you turn a profit or resell. Mm-hmm. This is, you're at a loss from day one. Yeah. You have to earn back, that investment that's coming out of, selling breast milk or put it on a credit card and all that.
Or taking out a second mortgage.
Mm-hmm. So it's really hard. And I think it's deceptive. If you look at all the marketing stuff that they would show on the documentary, it's like, make this, make this, make this. What does make mean? Mm-hmm. It reminds me of, we used to have a tax business years and years and years ago. Mm-hmm. And we were doing this tax return for this, a lot of truckers are independent operators, right? They have their truck, they're long haul drivers and so on. So they get 1099 income. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, like, they weren't real happy with the return that they were going to be getting. And the lady went off on us like, my husband made X dollars, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, we were professionals, but just because you grossed $100,000 and your expenses were, 95, that means your net income was $5,000, right? It doesn't mean that you made $100,000, right? And so I think, and it seems like the data that we could find backs it up, they're really deceptive, 100% deceptive in how they market how much money you can make. Even if they took that box and turned it into $1 million, but you spent $1.5 million to get that $1 million, right? To buy the box. Like, who cares?
Right.
It
is very vague. Like, if you try to do some research, the numbers do jump around quite a bit to see we know what the initial investment is, but what women were investing every single month to buy new product, it's all over it's all over the place. And also, Lularoe did not report all of the income from the retailers.
They don't have to, right? There's some,
unless you are. So if they cut you a bonus check, meaning let's say, you become, right? I become your downline. I become a retailer under you. You're my sponsor. You get a bonus check based on my sales. If you get a bonus check, they do have to report the bonus check they cut you. But that's just the bonus check.
Right.
Right. So the numbers obviously are skewed.
Yeah, on purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, on purpose.
And like they did have, the documentary did have a gentleman who's kind of an MLM expert, who just kind of reports on it and gives his thoughts, not just on LuLaRoe, but just in MLMs in general. And I had heard this before. It's interesting.
What's
that? If call it MLM, call it a pyramid, whatever, but just, the math doesn't lie. And if you you can't go but so many levels deep.
Yeah, you're going to run
out.
Or
you run out of people on the planet.
To sell leggings to. Yeah.
Or just that could be involved in the business.
That too.
13 levels, I think it is. Like, it just, now you're reaching, the Himalayan mountains and selling to like the people in Nepal.
They're stepping on they're stepping on each other's toes too.
Literally
that has
around,
to kind of get a little, just to muddy the waters there.
And as they scaled, then they started having all sorts of production issues and copyright issues of artistic work, trying to keep up with all the vast demand of getting the product out and trying to be creative. Like, you can be an artist can only be so creative before they're like stealing ideas and cheating, and then there was all these lawsuits around that. Sounds like they settled a bunch of those. Well,
here's the other issue that unfortunately the retailers were experiencing with the demand, because their warehouse couldn't hold. I think, I think the warehouse was 127,000 square feet. They outgrew that space, but they didn't think ahead. So instead, they took crates, they put all of the overflow of product in the parking lot, exposed it to the elements, and they still shipped it out. They shipped it out that it had been exposed to maybe rat feces, it had mold, mildew, the smell was terrible. And now these leggings were tearing because they were manufacturing them at some ridiculous pace. So now the
quality control is going down, and it's probably like one of the sons or daughters that's in charge of quality control, and it's never a job they've ever done.
That reminds me of The Office when they asked the guy, what are you doing? He's like, quabity. I think the guy who was looking over the leggings was like, what do I do? Yeah. But anyway, so. And
there's that one scene in The Office. It was one of their intros, right? Their little 2-minute intros where Michael Scott's like,
it's not a pyramid scheme.
And then Jim walks up and draws a pyramid around, like draws a triangle. And Michael's like, I got to go make a call. But I mean, we're laughing, but this really unfortunately hurt a lot of people. So we're not laughing at, because
absolutely not. This enrages me. It really does, because I feel like, especially because I do think in the beginning, I have to applaud the fact that she was creative, that she was driven,
right?
And she's a hardworking mom. I mean, that's a lot of kids. Think about it. She has 14 kids. Do you really think a lot of people who have 14 kids are sitting around thinking of how can I create a business? I mean, you're exhausted. You're already cooking for 14 people. So I have to hand it to her there. But there was definitely a moment where a shift happened for both of them where greed took over. And that's where the problem is. Now, a lot of these other individuals lost their homes, lost their family. It affected marriages. I think there was somebody on there that went ahead and made the investment without even talking to their spouse. And I'm pretty sure you and I have talked about, we've talked about finances, making a large purchase like that or investment when you don't have the money. That, of course, is going to create a problem. But this, unfortunately, shook the foundation for many households, and they never recovered.
And then that was another thing they spent a significant amount of time on in the documentary, is that there was a, again, it could be one-sided perspective, but it seems pretty clear. And they showed some documentation about how they, talk about, retiring your husband, or invest so much and grow the business to the point where your husband has to be involved so he can quit his job. And again, we're not arguing, right or wrong as far as like, the two household incomes, or her husband making more or wife making more, none of that.
But don't you think it's a little odd if I was let's say it was me.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just kind of role play here. Okay.
Okay.
Of course. So let's say I am, running an MLM, and I come to you and I say, you know what, my sponsor or my mentor told me that you need to quit your job. My business is only going to take off if you quit your job. What would you say?
Well, I mean, I've already watched this documentary, so I would say, let's talk about it. I mean, I wouldn't be so arrogant to be like, no way, my job's more important than your business. But we would have a really heart-to-heart about it, right? And try to be as objective as we possibly could and look at all the angles. But what I think is really deceptive is it seemed to be very clear that they do that in order to get their hooks completely in that family unit now.
Yeah.
Under this guise of like family unity and family, strength and all this.
They want you to be completely dependent upon the world of LuLaRoe, that it is your everything. Okay. And now it has, your marriage is rooted in LuLaRoe.
Yeah.
But, and the other thing is, we're not even saying that if I were to, let's say it were me, that the MLM is even making more money than you are. Okay. They never said that. They never said, oh, my business was making more than what my husband was bringing in. That was never said.
Yeah.
Okay?
It was more about,
it just said your business
until you do that. Yeah.
Will not take off until he quits his job. Okay.
That is, it just like boils my blood.
They're putting them at risk. So, and
I think it's done intentionally. I 100% believe it's intentional. It's calculated. It's not, they couch it a little bit in their kind of Mormon faith and like the belief of large families and like all the, all that.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's not presented as a Mormon.
Right. But they tied it to some of that, and they speak of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he started quoting some of the Mormon scripture at one of the conferences.
And then comparing himself to the founder.
Yeah. To the prophet or whatever. But and the other thing was with wanting the husband to actually come alongside you or come into your MLM business and work with you, the ultimate goal, not only to retire your husband, was also to have him take over the business and for you to take a step back, which that's what some of the women claim in the documentary again. So I don't know how many individuals experience that. It sounds like this is something that happened more at higher levels, those that had
I think so.
Teams.
Yeah.
So not if you're just an independent random retailer, but like if you were like a mentor or a sponsor.
So we've kind of bounced around a little bit, but that's essentially the history up to the last year or so.
Yeah.
And then it really started going kind of nuts, where all these Facebook groups that formed, these sort of anti-LuLaRoe Facebook groups, they've been forced to change their return policy because it was so abhorrent. Once it was brought into the light, and they changed it, and then they quickly reversed that because all these women took that as an opportunity to get all their refund, to return all their product that they had invested in and leave the business. And then I think they sat down with their lawyers and their accountant and were like, oh crap,
you can't do that.
Yeah. This is going to sink the company. So let's reverse it back. It's like, then they reversed it again, and then they changed it and they tweaked it and they played around with it to, there's been multiple lawsuits. There are multiple lawsuits. The big one, it seems like there's a huge class action lawsuit still in play. And then the state of Washington, actually filed I don't even know the statute, but they have kind of MLM statutes on the books, and they settled for like $4.75 million, I think, which for LuLaRoe is almost nothing. But apparently it forced them to change some of their sort of policies towards retailers. which, you know, I think one of the lawyers that was on the documentary said it's not nothing.
I think it was 4.75 million.
Right. So the money's, it's really not the money. It's about the policies that they had to change on the books that hopefully will help women or investors going forward. If they decide to join Lularoe, it's, you know, more structured and it's, you know, not as deceptive and I guess, you know, money losing, you know, kind of outcomes, I guess.
Yeah.
But sounds like the big one is the class action lawsuit still going on.
Yeah, actually, I think there's still multiple.
Yeah, I'm sure there are, right? Yeah. Like, and a lot of them we'll never know because they get settled or whatever. So here's as we kind of wrap up and talk about Lularoe as well. I think because this is a marriage podcast, right? One of the things that really stood out to me, and I asked you about it.
What's that?
Is this connection of like cult of personality. With the two founders, right? You've mentioned some of the things that attracted to you to Deanne. Is it Deanne? Deanne. Just about her.
By the way, she's a twin. She's Deanne and her sister is Diane.
Yeah, and they were like the last of 11 kids themselves or something crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
But so it's Deanne.
Yeah. So when I see a couple that's been married for a long time, they've been married for 20 plus years, whatever it is, they've adopted kids, there's clearly a family, you know, and they seem to have this sort of banter and flirtatiousness with each other and kind of they play off one another well. And I really want to believe it because I like to see that. And you know, they're both silver haired. I mean, she's blonde, but I'm sure there's some gray roots underneath there, brown roots, whatever it was. But, you know, he's all, they've been around, right?
Yeah.
They're not spring chickens.
Very committed to one another. I mean, I don't like to, you know, think that they're,
how much of that is right, but they're also knowing they're being interviewed for a documentary, knowing all this other stuff that happens behind the scenes that they've shown videos of, and their deceptiveness and this, like, what is it about? I mean, cults typically are one person. It's a founder that everybody follows the one person, right? This seems to have like a cultish type of attraction to them as a couple, which I've never really seen before.
That, you mean the retailers are attracted to wanting to just work for them regardless of the product because of
because they love that family dynamic, the marriage, the, you know, both her drive, his drive, how much they support each other.
Well, and that, the way you present it doesn't necessarily sound bad. Oh, you know, they work together, they have a great family. Those are all good things. If we could eliminate all of the deception behind it. But no one wants to follow a leader who's a bump on a log. I mean, they're part. I mean, seriously, like,
that's the cult of personality thing, right? Not that we're not saying they're a cult. It's not religious based, but is it fake? Did you find that to be real or fake? They're them, I guess.
I think initially, in the beginning, it was all very real. For anybody to, you know, continue to grow a family, that's a lot of stress. Okay, to marry somebody with 7 children already, I feel like that.
He had 4.
Obviously, is to have a really big heart, and so I think in the beginning, I think this was all very true, very pure. You know, and they just, hey, we're going to go into business together. It sounds great. You know, I don't think there was any deception there at all, and I really don't think that the drive was to take advantage of anyone. I think that it got to be where they. As this grew, and watching it, and if you see the conferences and all these people, and they're on stage, they're feeding off of that. It's like this power hungry, like, you know, they probably thought we're a power couple, where we can tell these people to do anything, spend anything, you know, and we're going to continue to rake it in. I think it just became a big monster, and then from there, who knows what goes on behind closed doors? You know, how that affected their marriage, or maybe it brought them closer together because now they're both.
Like, hey, we're all in on this. If we don't keep up appearances, like,
yeah, I mean, if they didn't, it would all fall apart, you know, and they'd lose everything. And they've already had a taste of wealth and riches, and people constantly praising them. I mean, they're flying on private jets, and you know, I think he was going to, I forget what it was, some type of like racetracks with, you know, all these.
That's a whole different.
I mean, they're living a celebrity-like lifestyle. People said they treated them like celebrities, so. I think it just morphed into something else. What it is truly now, we'll never know.
Like power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Isn't that the saying? So like, are they trending towards that? And
Hold on, let me write. It's the new saying.
It's not a new saying. I did not make that up. If I did make that up, that'd be pretty impressive.
It would be.
But like, I think that given that he knows exactly what MLMs are, his parents were involved with Amway in the 60s, he said, I think this was much more calculated than we're giving him credit for.
Yeah. And
I think that he knew what he was doing and he knew how it was going to scale that. Well, I don't think he realized it was going to scale like that, but I think that he absolutely is a fake and a manipulator. And yes, he has that energy and that dynamic kind of personality. And I mean, I'm not going to make a judgment on their marriage. It's not my place. I have no idea. But from the face, you know, how the facade that they put on, I think it's complete garbage. And I think it's, yes, the energy's there, but I think it's all shrouded. It's all an act in order to just make more money.
Yeah.
Just, I think it's, at the end of the day, I think that's all it is.
There's definitely a lack of integrity there in watching the documentary and how the business was structured and how they treated the people that,
and we're not talking about like a few thousand. We're talking about like, didn't they get up to 60,000? I think it was up to like around 60,000 retailers at one point. So you're talking about a lot. You know, this isn't a few thousand. So we tried to do, as we kind of wrap this up, we did a little bit of research just to kind of figure out like, okay, well, the documentary, it's a documentary. It is pretty level, like pretty kind of level.
It shows all perspectives.
Yeah, it's level
pretty much,
side, right side, whatever. I can't think of the right term, but if you're thinking about it and you're getting kind of it, and it's easy to, right? The marketing materials are fantastic. It's a great story, completely, and the product is good. Like it's a product that has significant demand. Little word of caution. So when you did one search, what'd you find?
So I just wanted to see, like, let's say, obviously you guys are familiar with eBay. You can find anything on there. Typed in Lularoe leggings, and there's tons of people that are retailers that are trying to sell their product. I have it's 59,772 results of just leggings, and not the shirts, not the skirts, just the leggings.
And that doesn't, and within that could be one pair, or it could be hundreds or lots, or like
here's someone right now. She's a former consultant. It says $5 her best offer.
Right.
And it shows a picture. It's a huge box of the lot of leggings she has. And there's women that are in this situation right now. They're trying to get rid of this merchandise. What else are they going to do?
Right. I mean, like anything, you got to try to cut your losses, or just try to, make any money you can.
Make some of it back.
Some of it back. Yeah. So cautionary tale. I think it's cautionary in general about cult of personality. This one just kind of struck me because it's almost like a cult of marriage personality versus like following one particular leader. Right. And, so, I think that, it's definitely worth a watch if you're interested in just kind of,
it's a good watch. MLMs, I mean, they did a good job.
In general.
I think they did a good job as documentaries go of showing all sides, and they really do tell the story well, and they do give them an opportunity to tell their side. I don't like it when a documentary is very one-sided and just trying to make somebody out to be a villain.
And there wasn't a big gotcha moment. It kind of laid out a bunch of different sides, and it was almost like, you guys make your own opinion, which I appreciate. That's what a documentary in my mind. Yeah. Because sometimes you start watching a documentary and about 2 minutes in, you're like, oh wow, this is, exactly where this is going. They're going to only show one side. It's skewed, which that's their right as a documentary maker, I guess. Yeah. Documentarian, is that I don't know.
Documentary?
No, like if you're the maker of a documentary, are you a documentarian?
Oh my gosh.
So
the dad jokes are off the charts.
That is a proper English question.
I know, but I feel like you're waiting for like a ba-dum-bump.
You know what?
It's a good watch. And here's the other thing. If you're thinking about possibly dipping your toe in the pool of MLMs, I would highly recommend doing some research on numbers alone.
Right. Because
from the very beginning.
Because, what you can make, what does that mean? It's all about net profit. It's not about, and that includes all your expenses and your cost. Under expenses would be your cost of product, but also like your cost of doing business. Those are real things, and don't just look at top line revenue. Yeah. And so I think those are the the two things our takeaways, look at the numbers. What are the numbers? What are the real numbers as best you can? And then be that cult of personality. Like, am I getting caught up in the emotion and the passion and the energy of the founders and the marketing materials?
Yeah.
Or is this something that makes sense for my family, for me, for my, you know, what I'm good at, and so on. And watch out for couples that are too perfect, right?
You know, or any type of opportunity that seems too perfect. I think you need to really look at all angles, you know, because especially with this type of product, it's very specific. And I don't think anyone thought initially, gosh, the pool's going to get smaller. I don't think and looking at it, I mean, these are very smart women, but as it grew, obviously nobody asked about protected territories or markets or anything like that. And that was something that was brought up in the documentary.
And the returns, not being able to return product and all that. And man, now you're getting stuck, right? But well, anyways, we hope this was helpful. It was fun for us. We enjoyed
it was a fun documentary. It was a good watch.
It is a good watch and cautionary, but also entertaining to a point, right? So definitely check it out. I think it's on Amazon. It's not.
It's on Prime.
It's on Prime. So if you have Prime, watch it. But well, thanks for listening in on our thoughts on LuLaRoe.
Our rants on LuLaRich.
I wanted to give at the beginning a little caveat or warning that I'd probably call it Lululemon at some point, but I haven't. So this is definitely not Lululemon. That's a whole different animal.
That's not an animal. That's a
I know, but it's so close. How many companies start with Lulu?
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Anyways, well, thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if so, please continue to listen and subscribe on Podbean, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We would greatly appreciate positive reviews, and we will answer any questions at feedback@destinationmarriagepodcast.com. For up-to-date content and news about the podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at destination_marriage and visit our website at destinationmarriagepodcast.com. Be sure to tune in next week.